What up, y'all? We're here for our midweek alchemy message where we are unpacking the work that we are doing as far as like working with our spiritual lessons for the week. So out of the Wild Unknown Alchemy deck, we have Against Nature, followed by Vinegar, followed by Sap of the Moon. Underneath Against Nature, we have Nine of Wands. Underneath Vinegar, we've got Ten of Swords reverse. And underneath the Sap of the Moon, we have Knight of Pentacles reversed. Before we get into the reading, I'll quickly mention that I have, the last couple of days have been in the shorts, reading Psalms and reading the use of the Psalm. So the first Psalm that I shared the day before yesterday, was the Psalm you read for protection against all evil occurrences. The Psalm I read today is a Psalm for protection against poverty. And I actually went in and had an amazing shift tonight. Yesterday, I got cut from work after the Psalm, but I think it was destined because I went to pray for my dad, who is exactly on the opposite side of the spectrum of everything that I am for. And it was, I think, a powerful visit that demonstrated a lot. I actually read that specific Psalm over him and left him a copy with the Hebrew words to scan, and told him what I really thought about things that are going on. I kept it short and sweet, and I didn't say anything too extreme or name calling or anything too radical. I expressed my deepest concern for the future of women in this country, around the world, for the sake of the world, and I specifically called out that I was terrified for my little sister's future, about what that is going to entail for her. So I told him that I thought he seriously needs to rethink what he supports about this current administration, because we've fallen under an authoritarian regime. And I left. He wanted me to hang out, and I was like, I can't sit here and pretend like I agree with any of this. And that's when I told him what I told him, and I walked out. And it was pretty badass, because when I was praying for him before I, spoke this truth, I laid hands on him and I could feel the power of muscle spasms happening as my words were being spoken over him. I anointed him in olive oil and lily of the valley oil. It came from Israel, and I told him that. And regardless of whether he wanted to admit it to himself or not, his body was having powerful reactions to this prayer, muscle spasms coming out of his chest. And it wasn't on his heart side, it was on the other side. So it wasn't just that he was nervous and having these heartbeats. You know what it's like when you have those pokes in your body, and you're like, whoa, my body's really reacting to this. So I don't know if what I said landed. Historically, my dad hasn't really been open to anyone's criticism or feedback. He could be pretty sociopathic and narcissistic, but I felt that I did something that was powerful in clearing my tikkun, because I have always had a difficult time speaking my truth to my dad or standing up to him, because he is always the person that threatens you and steamrolls over you. And so in the past few years, I have had my moments where I'm just like, fuck it, I don't care. I don't care if I ever see this SOB again. And I don't know, we'll see. We usually end up, seeing each other, talking. I think he tries to sweep it under the rug like it never happened and pretend like everything's just normal. But we'll see. We'll see if anything got through. But I did feel like I wasn't dying to speak up. Half the time I'd rather just save my breath and not waste my tears and energy. But this time I went against my nature to be passive and just do my own thing and be independent anyway. And I spoke up. So this card is about this card going against nature paired with 9 of Wands, I believe is about the evolution that we have as human beings when we're correcting our soul's tikkun. Basically, our tikkun is the assignments, the workbook that we're given as souls when we come to this life. And there are certain destined points that are unavoidable, that we can't fight this destiny, but we do have free will along the path of how we respond to the cards that were dealt in regards to this destiny. So it's like, pretend that life was a script, but it was only written basically like the Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes, where it's like an outline, right? But the actors within the scenes, they know that they have to hit these certain points, and they know the direction of the scene, and they know that there's certain things that are definitely going to happen, but how they react to one another within the scene is their own choice as an actor. It's their improvisation, right? That show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, is an improvised show, meaning that the scenes are outlined. They have the basic structure of the scene and they know where they need to get, but the way that they respond to one another is their own choice. And so that's the actor's creativity, that they bring that performance and then they play off one another. That is a perfect metaphor for our life. There are certain points in life that are plotted out that are unavoidable. We have an unavoidable destiny, but how we show up within those points and within our life and navigate these experiences and situations and people, and the way that we choose our consciousness, the way that we choose our thoughts, the way that we choose to see things, the way that we choose to speak about things, the way that we choose to act and behave. Those are our free will choices. Those are the moments that define our soul and our character. So our tikkun, the negative aspects of ourself, these are the aspects that come easy to our nature. And we are assigned to rise above our easy nature, to push further than what comes easily, right? For some people, it's easier for them to want to shrink back and stay quiet and stay passive and not make a fuss. And for those people, and I think a lot of times I can fall into either, because I'm an Aries, which is like, rah, but I'm also a Libra, which kind of is like, accommodating everyone. In the middle of that, my moon is a Cancer. So I am feeling everything that's going on all the time with everyone. I'm super empathic. So a lot of times my nature tends to be, I don't say anything until it builds up to the point where I can't hold my words back. So in both cases, I have to go against my nature. When my overly accommodating passive side, Libra, is in control, I have to rise above the desire to want to stay out of it and keep everybody happy. I have to speak my truth because there's something important that needs to be said, and I need to be courageous enough to say it, going against my nature. When my Aries side is taking over and I want to pop off and I want to get in somebody's face and let me tell you, I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. I'm going to give you the business and it's going to feel great because I can really roast somebody. I mean, I can roast someone like it is an art. And that is when I have to practice self-control, go against my nature to want to pop off and get sassy and use my very articulate talents to make someone feel this big and show them who they really are, because to me, everyone's naked. I can see who everybody really is. So that's why a lot of people are uneasy around me. If they're comfortable with themselves and people like who they are, then they love me. They love hanging out with me. But people who are hiding something and who don't like who they are very intimidated by me. And if they don't have to be stuck with me in an atmosphere and learn to like live alongside me, they many times avoid me. So I many times have to go against my nature and rein it in. And so I have to discern in any given moment, okay, is this my ego wanting to pop off, or is this my ego wanting to shrink back and go against that natural nature? Our soul is always trying to push us out of our comfort zone, right? So if, let's say giving, if you're a giving person, why are you giving? Are you the person who gives and gives and gives because you want to make everybody happy all the time, and that's what gives you validation, and that's what gives you self-esteem, and you think that this is what's going to help you get people to like you and look up to you and respect you? Or because in some of those cases, the assignment for you would be to go against your nature and not over give to everyone, because in that sense, you're creating bread of shame and you're interrupting someone else's process, and you're giving with a motive. You're giving with strings attached. So the giving isn't true sharing because you're hoping to get something in return. You're doing it to get something out of it. So in that case, you might, the tikkun assignment for you to go against your nature might be to set a little bit of stronger boundaries, and to, not try to solve everyone's problems for them and let them learn their own lessons from their own mistakes, or let them earn their own insight and their own way. And that's going to feed their self-esteem. Whereas a person who is greedy and always wants their share and is always like pushing themselves to the front, going against their nature would be to give more and to put themselves out of their comfort zone and feel the trust that God will take care of them if the right thing for them to do is to share and put themselves out a little bit. So hopefully from those examples, you can see that like to grow as a soul, we have to push through what comes easy to us. We have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone and rise above our easy, lower self nature, and rise above to do the thing that's harder for us to do. So these two cards, this going against nature, there's an aspect of this card that is like we talked about, but there's also an aspect of this card that talks about how we're trying to avoid our destiny, or we're trying to deny our destiny, or we're pushing against nature. And sometimes the universe is trying to pull you towards your destiny, and we're resisting it because we're holding on to our own egoic will. It's like, oh no, I know what I want and I know what I need and I want it my way, so I am going to force this in the universe. This is why I think that spell work is actually working against you. And I'm definitely against people trying to manifest specific people into their life, because you are going against people's free will and you are trying to force the universe to give you something that may not be meant for you. And what that does is anything that you take from the universe that's not yours or that you don't earn, you will pay for it in chaos and in sorrow and in suffering. So you're better off to align yourself with the will of God and use your energy to heal yourself and to elevate your consciousness, because you start to see things differently. And you're like, I don't want to force my will anymore. Every time I've tried to force something to work out and then I finally get it, it's like, oh, this is like a glitter covered turd. It's not like, it doesn't turn out the way that you want. It's not what you really need. Whereas every time I've aligned myself with the will of God and trusted and been brought to something that was meant for me, it brings me so much more fulfillment, and it brings me so much more joy. So there's some aspect of us that is trying to force our will in a situation that is causing us to get stuck here. Do you see how have you ever been in a forest and it's like the thorn bushes have grown up and they're so thick and you can't get through them? This happens in the back of my woods too. There's parts of the woods that like I tried to take a shortcut and then I get caught in all these like thorns. And like the more you try to force your way in this direction, you get scratched up, and it's like you're missing all of life's blossoms because you're getting torn up by the thorns because you're determined to take this shortcut. And so instead of just going, on the right path, right? So it's like you're working against yourself by trying to force this. You're getting caught up in all these thorns. Now, in another sense, in a positive sense, rising above our nature, going against that lower nature, that easy self, that lower self that's not been awakened to the higher self yet. The Knight of Wands is a card that talks about how we have the strength and capability to handle our affairs and to handle the challenges that are set forth in front of us and to persevere to overcome our lower nature. So we have what it takes to overcome our dark side, our lower self, our carnal mind that is out to survive, and it's a dog eat dog world, and it's the lust driven self, it's the selfish driven self, it's the anything to survive self, right? That's not the higher self. That is the lower flesh ego self. There's the animalistic instinct self. And so we have to rise above the mind of the beast, the mind of the animal, being completely instinctually driven for sex and survival. It's really all animals are doing at any given time. They're eating and they're reproducing. Sometimes they're in a snuggle puddle, but for the most part, they're eating, they're shitting, and they're reproducing. So look at people who have no higher consciousness. They're out there in the world and they're eating and they're shitting and they're trying to fuck, essentially. In between, they are pacifying their mind with easy things to keep themselves occupied, right? But as we awaken, as we strive towards our higher self and we strive above our lower self, we're met with challenge. It's not easy. We have to practice discipline and restriction and rise above those sensual reflexes. But we can do it. We have the strength to persevere and get past this and get past our lower nature. The Knight of Wands also talks about like breaking patterns that have held us back and breaking addictions and breaking those behaviors and mindset and that lower consciousness that keeps us going through those loops. So in a sense, there's the higher self that's trying to pull us out of our lower nature, and we're being assured that we can absolutely do this. But if we keep trying to force something that's not in our destiny, we're working against ourselves and we're getting stuck in the thorns. If we keep trying to avoid our destiny, we're going to get stuck in the thorns. Our destiny is calling, and we all are being called right now to show up in some very distinct way in life and answer that specific call. These are very interesting times where humanity is shifting from one era into another, and who we are during this moment it's pivotal, and it is extremely vital and important. And so one day we will answer for our choices and our decisions and how we showed up or how we didn't show up during this time. So we're needed more than ever. We need to overcome ourselves. We need to overcome our petty differences. We need to overcome our own selfish darkness, because that out of control and magnified is what we're seeing on the world stage right now. But what we're also seeing is like the masses rising up and fighting for loving our neighbor and defending the weak and standing up for the rights of children and immigrants and elderly people and the sick, right? It's like the Sermon on the Mount is like playing out in real time right now. And, Jesus said, what you do to the least of these, you do to me. And that's another thing I brought up to my dad last night. I brought up 2 key points because he was like, well, thanks for coming. And I was like, well, you're in pain. And I had empathy for your pain. And Jesus tells us to visit the sick. And so I wanted to remind him that when he's in pain, he wants people to have empathy for him. But the people that he glorifies are spouting that empathy is a sin, and that empathy, nobody should have empathy, and empathy, is exploited, right? Mr. Empathy is exploited is crying on the news right now, trying to get people to feel sorry for him because his company's going under. He's had made broken records for historical losses. So the facade is crumbling, and we're hoping that people can wake up and see it, right? But on an individual level, right, we are responsible for our own soul progression in this life. It's not just about the collective story that's going on that we're a part of, but we're also responsible for our own soul. So we can't just be out looking outside of ourselves at everything that's wrong with the world. We have to work on our own self, and that's number one most important thing, because Jesus also said, don't obsess over the speck in your neighbor's eye when you've got a log in yours. So we really need to pay attention during this time of Pisces, and during Pisces conjunction with the sun, and Neptune is conjunct with the sun in Pisces right now. It is like subconscious overload, like all of these things that we need to let go of and forgive and change and move forward and purge and grieve and let go of and forgive. It is all like magnified right now. This is the most intense Pisces season I think I've ever felt. We always are in endings and beginnings in Pisces season, and it's always like this emotional deep clean, getting ready for spring. But this year, woof. And I mean, with everything else going on, it's a collective woof, right? But we have the strength, we have the courage, we have what it takes to persevere and overcome ourselves. And which brings us to vinegar. Vinegar it hints at this sour note in the air, right? It's bitter, it's sour. And we talked earlier this week about looking back and sort of like wondering about the mysteries of our life. Like, why did it go this way? Why was it like this? Why was it like that? If we obsess too much in that why me and why, like we're left with this frozen in bitterness, and there's like this sour note that permeates everything that gets in the way. But I think that we're starting to let that go, and we're starting to get through the other side of this sourness, this bitterness, and we're able to dissolve, right? Maybe in some cases you need to speak out and clear the air, or at least clear the air for yourself. It may not make the relationship, like for me, getting that out and saying that to my dad, I needed to say it. It was trapped inside, and it was creating rage and anger and bitterness, and it was a heavy weight that I was carrying around. And afterwards it felt so liberating, and I felt so at peace, and like I really did the right thing. It wasn't like a self-righteousness, and I gotta admit, I did like feel pretty good about myself at that moment. I went in like with my leather jacket on. You can see my outfit from yesterday. I was like stone cold, like no emotion, just, I laid it down. I felt like a badass. I will say that. But this is not about self-righteousness, though. If you have to speak your truth and clear the air, it may not give you the result you want. I don't expect my dad to change his mind or suddenly be the dad that I always hoped he'd be. I'm realistic, but who knows? I believe miracles can happen. I'm praying for a miracle to happen. I pray for my dad every night. But I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel differently now. I feel like I don't have that weight that I'm carrying around inside of me. And I won't have that regret that, like, he never knows why I was the way I was. Why wasn't I, like at his beck and call? Like, why wasn't I such an obedient daughter, up under his feet? Like, I've tried to be, like, have a relationship with him. He's just not interested. He only wants us around, like, when it's convenient for him and when he's feeling nostalgic. And so we've gotten to the point where we're like, okay, we'll be there if we can, like, you haven't made us a priority ever. And so, to him, he probably tells himself all kinds of things, and so, or wonders, and if you wonder, this is why. So I felt that was helping to dissipate that vinegar in my life. But what is it for you? What's leaving you in a sour note? It might be that, you wonder why a relationship never worked out, or why bad blood happened the way it did, why an argument went the way it did. What if it had gone differently? Like, you might be wanting closure or validation or permission that you're never going to get. And so you have to close the book on that yourself. You have to give yourself the validation. You have to give yourself the permission. You have to give yourself the closure, because waiting for someone else outside of you to give it to you, you're going to be wasting your entire life, and it's going to be wasted. And so I think we're kind of understanding that now. And so I think that there's this shift in consciousness that's happening, because that's what Ten of Swords talks about. And I want to read it to you from Eileen Conley. Ten of Swords reverse is like the energy is changing, your consciousness is shifted around something. And so because that your consciousness is shifted, the energy is shifting. And so then the situation, the circumstances are going to start changing around you too. But when you think about this vinegar card, and maybe I'll read vinegar as well. We've read it before, but it would help to read it, I think. So let's start with vinegar, and then it will underscore the point by reading Ten of Swords reverse. Okay. So vinegar, acidity, distillation, memory. And it's cool because this is literally in the same position as Monday's spread. In the middle was riddle, the mystery. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. But underneath riddle and mystery was Six of Cups, which is memory. So memories and, looking back on childhood and wondering, like, why it all, what was it all for? What was the purpose of that, right? And so this is in the same position. Okay, so acidity, distillation, and memory. The tongue knows vinegar. Even the suggestion of receiving a few drops into the mouth reminds us of vinegar's sour and lip-puckering qualities. In alchemy, vinegar serves as an active agent of distillation, fermentation, and preservation. It is incredibly useful when applied in the right amounts and with intention. This said, it can be easily overused, overwhelming the situation at hand. When the vinegar card is present in a reading, it indicates a sour note permeates the laboratory. It is likely something from the past is showing up in the present and demanding our attention. It is in vinegar's nature to take over, to overwhelm, be cautious with its material. Be cautious with this material. A little goes a long way. As they say, it is productive to look at your past, but not to stare. Such is the complex energy of vinegar. There's a door knocking. Make sure it might have just been my neighbor. She just walked in. She might have just made a noise. I don't think anybody's there. That'd be weird. It's really late. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Ten of Swords reverse. So Ten of Swords reverse. Cycle of events changing. Coming out of a bad situation. New and positive vibrations on the way. Karmic shadow is fading now. New seeds begin to plow. A karmic lesson has now been completed. Steady improvement in business or health. Suffering from the aftermath of a deep and personal hurt. Now in need of spiritual counseling. So we have these themes of like a karmic lesson has been completed. We have the energy is lifting, the cycle is shifting, things are moving, new vibrations are coming, new vibrations are on the way, even if you don't feel them yet. You may have in the past suffered like a deep hurt that maybe you need a little bit of extra help getting over it and releasing that vinegar. It's like in Sodom and Gomorrah when Lot and his wife fled from the city and they were told not to look back because the city was being destroyed by like this angelic fire. And Lot's wife had family there. She was from the city. So she looked back because, this is an extreme situation, but it's like she didn't want to let go. She couldn't move forward. And so the symbolism here is that she kept looking back to the past. She couldn't let go of the past. And because of that, she became a pillar of salt, right? Well, look at us. When we can't get over something in the past and we keep looking back and we keep looking back and we can't let it go, what does that do? It locks us up. We're frozen. We're like statues preserved in this moment that we can't move forward in life. And we're stuck, frozen in bitterness, in sour bitterness, right? So our consciousness is shifting around this and we're feeling like, okay, I have to just forgive this and let it go. And even though I don't agree and I don't justify it and I don't condone it, for me personally, I don't want this to be a toxic influence in my life anymore. So I can't keep carrying this baggage around. I've got to let it go. So we're shifting our mindset, which is clearing the air. And by taking that action that I took at the hospital, I felt like I was doing some sort of balancing, right? I was doing an action that tipped the scales, that corrected something from the past, or that helped me transcend a challenge, maybe to stand up to my dad or to speak my truth to my dad, not in an egoic way, not in a mean way, not in a cruel way, but in an honest, heartfelt way. So whatever that is for you, maybe that helps you in hearing that example. And so here we have the moon's sap. Now I feel like this has a lot to do with, I think that we're being really encouraged and tugged at and called by spirit to sit in meditation and open up and decalcify our pineal gland so that we can access that sacred secretion that comes down into our body, through our glands, into our system, into our chakras, that comes when you activate that pineal gland. And so when we sit in meditation, we open ourselves up to that higher mind, that higher wisdom, that Christ consciousness. And it takes sitting in stillness and quiet to activate that. It's not the same when you say, oh, I'm meditating, my run is a meditation. I walk through the woods and that's a form of meditation. But I think that the what we need to sit in is like, look at this darkness. Look at this, the seated in stillness and darkness. The supernal feminine, the qualities of the supernal feminine, like the origin, materials of the universe, the supernal masculine, the supernal feminine, and Keter, the crown, the all that is, the white light, the light of God in complete unity and abstractness is one. Two is the divine masculine. which is the supernal masculine of dynamism, raw dynamism. It's just this, like, imagine an atom being split and all that raw energy everywhere. That is just pure masculine energy without any refinement. And then when you go to the pure element of the divine feminine, the supernal feminine, it is restriction. It is the force, the womb that catches that dynamism, that gives it shape. But it has to give it restriction. It has to give it boundary. It has to give it limits, or else there's no shape. There's no border. There's no structure. So part of that supernal feminine force is silence, is stillness. It's receiving. So we need to sit in silence, maybe have some classical music, but nothing that you're catching on to, like a thought that's being planted in your head. Don't do a guided meditation. Those are good too. They're not bad, but it's just that we need a specific kind of silence and quiet right now for the spirit to really speak through us. So we need to be able to sit in stillness and quiet with our eyes closed, focusing on our breath and being in the quiet stillness of the vast expanse that opens up inside of us. We have a universe inside of us. And so we can't tap into that if somebody is telling us what to think and taking us through these, like, visualizations. Those are good and they have a place, but they don't quite offer us the same as absolute empty space. So I think spirit is urging us and begging us and pleading, sit in meditation, sit in stillness, do this regularly. And I need to do this myself because I don't do it often enough. And I know from the difference from when I do it and when I don't, it's definitely not the same as the other tools and things that I use. So we're being asked to do this. This is Pisces season, and so inherently our dreams are much more vivid right now. They're much more magnified. I know I've had the most vivid, magnified, clear dreams this month. And part of the help is that, like, during Lent, I decided to give up the legal version of weed in Tennessee, which is natural THCA. It's just not potent until you light it. So it makes it federally legal, or state legal. It's legal across the country. But I was like, you know what? I'll just won't smoke weed. But you can't, like, when you go to sleep at night, you don't remember your dreams as well. And so I'm like, oh, my dreams are, like, really vivid right now. And so the spirit speaks to us through our dreams, right? And through the symbolism of our dreams. And so they're very important. And so pay attention, keep a dream journal, pay close attention to every detail you can about your dreams. Write them down. You'll have your own initial impressions about them. So pay attention to those impressions and your intuition about the interpretation. But also as an additional tool, I like to use dreammoods.com. And just as a warning, when you get to this website, it's like there's a lot of pop-ups, and if you click on anything, it says it's under construction. What you have to do is up at the top, it's been under construction for like 10 years. It works, trust me. So go to the top of the page, and there's, like, you see this toolbar that's like A through Z, the Dream Dictionary A through Z. So you have to use the A through Z columns. And so you have to think of, okay, what are the things I remember about my dream? There's a lion, there's claws, there's ice, there's dirt. Is it dirt or dust? Like, there's a cabin that looks like the Wild West. Like, all these things, you look those up individually, alphabetically, in that top search bar. And you won't believe how many things are listed and how accurate and how in-depth the interpretations are. I don't know who created this website. I mean, it was created a long time ago. It's very rudimentary. It's always under construction, but it's one of the best dream interpretations I've found. I've tried the different books. I don't know where they're getting their information. It's never very accurate, but this website always hits the nail on the head for me. So give it a shot, try it out, interpret your dreams, pay attention. And then we have the Knight of Pentacles reversed. And so it's like things are moving slowly. When the Knight of Pentacles is in reverse, it's like imagine yourself tired, depressed, not really doing your thing. You're off your game. You're off your routine. You need so much encouragement, so much inspiration to get going, to do the slightest little thing. You're not keeping up with your responsibilities. You're not staying on the routine. You're not keeping the promises to yourself. You're kind of dissatisfied with everything, and you kind of are like, I want everything to be different. And I'm going to read you Knight of Pentacles reversed. Sometimes I just go on complete intuition and channel these messages with the cards, but then other times I'm really guided to specifically look up either what the book that came with the card says, because sometimes they have a unique way of talking about it, and there might be some specific line that has some sort of kismet meaning for someone. But then other times the spirit is like, read Eileen Conley's interpretation. If you read the Tarot for the Apprentice, this is almost like a book of the spiritual mystics' rise to Christ consciousness. It's a very in-depth, well, it's like the interpretations themselves aren't super in-depth, but there's a lot of layers that go on in this book. They go into more depth with the major arcana. There are prayers and meditations associated with the major arcana. They lay out the Kabbalistic connections with the cards. So I always really enjoy, and I've always found that her interpretations hit the nail on the head. Like we just read the other one, there's like these just a couple of sentences, but they hit different points, and you're almost every time you're like, whoa, everything is true about this interpretation. So Knight of Pentacles reverse. An irresponsible and impatient attitude affects the progress of this young man. And what have our messages been telling us recently? Whether you've been listening to the dailies, shorts, or our ongoing lessons that we talk about here, is that we have to be patient, and we're feeling antsy and we don't want to be patient. So an irresponsible and impatient attitude affects the progress of this young man. Now, what does Kabbalah teach us? It teaches us that when we sit and wait on a result, we are leaking energy and we're leaking our power, and we're taking the effectiveness out of our actions. So waiting for results, it's like it's being in lack consciousness and it's being in effect consciousness, right? You're not sovereign. You're not, the cause. You're waiting to see how the effect works out, right? So it's not being in a state of certainty when you're constantly looking to see, are the results in? Is this going to go the way I want? Like, we have to trust the creator, that the creator has the plan and the solution. And we do our best, right? We make all the effort, we do our best, we do our part. And then otherwise we have to just trust that the chips will fall where they may, and the chips will fall where the creator wants them to fall, if we do our best. Okay, so an irresponsible and impatient attitude affects the progress of this young man. White hair, dark hair, any race, falls too often through his haste. So trying to do something too fast or cutting corners is going to lead to chaos and disorder and problems. So the guidelines could be a young man in the situation. Money, work, or other important matters seem to be at a standstill. I know a lot of us are feeling that, like financial strain at this moment, and it seems as though things are at a standstill, but a miracle can happen instantly, and there's always things stirring under the surface. Also, go watch my short and learn the psalm for prosperity, to protect one against poverty. You guys can save those shorts in a playlist, and you can use those prayers every day. They're only like a minute or so, a couple of minutes long. So, but it can be a tool that you can reference to use to learn these prayers and their uses. Let's see. Money and work or other important matters seem to be at a standstill. Needs a lot of encouragement, tends to be timid and make mistakes. Received some hard knocks in his life, needs the security of love. dissatisfied with everything and everyone, looking for a new start. So the solution of this disgruntled kind of edginess and angst and apathy, it's like angst and apathy and disgruntledness all at the same time. The answer is God is like, sit in meditation. Regulate your nervous system. Listen quietly to the direction that I'm giving you. It will raise your vibration, but you'll be able to tap into the voice of spirit that is very soft and very quiet and very hard to hear, especially over the noise in the world right now, causing us so much upset and anxiety and sorrow. We need to feel that for the world, but we also need to be able to distance ourselves from it and have self-control and not be controlled by those emotions. Because if we let them take us down, we're going to get bent out of shape, and we have to be strong for one another. You know, we all have our bad days, but we have to bounce back. We have to be able to say, you know what, I'm under an attack of the enemy right now, and I am under attack of the devil trying to get into my head and make me miserable so that I feel feelings of despair and futility, and I don't want to try anymore. I want to give up. I've been feeling that too recently, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to give up. Neither are you. We're going to meditate, get our heads clear, get our hearts clear, and get our energy clear. And we're going to get clear advice and clear guidance from spirit because of that. All right, you all, that is all for tonight. Much love. I'll see y'all tomorrow for our weekly romance reading. I may or may not be working tomorrow, so we might have our message early, we might not. I'll talk to you then. Ciao.